Hello geologists, this is Mark Leeson of MTech Software, and today I'm presenting a second video on QuickLog, which is Module 1 of the Geographic Software Suite. In the previous video I demonstrated QuickLog's data entry and range of features. In this second video I will demonstrate how to create a custom log format. If you haven't done so already, please download the free Geographics demo at mtechsoftware.com. From the main menu, click Download, and then select the current version. In case you didn't see the first video, I'll briefly enter some data to show how QuickLog works. When QuickLog starts, it opens the first file of the current project, in this case _bore1.bor. If you aren't already zoomed in, you can zoom in by selecting Zoom, Zoom Screen Width. You can also make this zoom the default by selecting Utilities, Graphic System Setup, then selecting after opening a file zoom to screen width. We'll use this file as a starter file or template. First I'll add a boring name by clicking here. As you can see, the boring name is now added to the diagram. Now I'll add some boring information from this section. As you can see, some of the boring information is already filled out. Maybe we want to put in a specific northern coordinate and eastern coordinate. As you can see, that information is now added to the boring log. Next, I'll enter some descriptions. The first layer has a top depth of 0. And then I'm going to select a fill code, in this case sandy clay. I'll give it a color. I will click on the pick list below to quickly enter the text without having to type it in. Now, I can still edit and type in text if I want. For example, I'll end this sentence with a period. I'll go down to the next line. I'll put in a special note at 4 feet, but adding a -4 to indicate that I want to place the next line of text at 4 feet. And I'll move down to the next layer and it's set its top depth to 5. So as you can see, the new layer is added. Next I'll enter some samples. I'll do 2-foot samples. The first one from 0 to 2, the second one from 2 to 4. And I will put in some blow count values. In this case, I can separate the blow count values by a comma to have them placed every foot for a 2-foot sample, or I could do 4 blow count values to have them placed every 6 inches. Then I'm going to enter some data for dry density and percent finer than the number 200 sieve. Click on OK. Sampling data is added to the diagram. Lastly, I'm going to do the well diagram. First I'll give it a well name and a top of casing elevation. Then I will start to do the outer layers, which consist of the grout, seal, sand packs, centralizers, or packers. So let's say the start surface is 0 and the grout layer ends at 12. We have a seal layer going from 12 to 14. Finally, a sand pack from 14 to say 26. I'll click on OK. And there's the start of the well diagram with the outer layers. Now I'm going to add the inner layers, which consist of the casings, the screens, caps, and pumps. So let's have the overall casing start at -1, which that's a negative number because it's in a depth. So in other words, it's a stick up above the ground of 1 foot. Let's have that end at 25 feet. And we'll have the screen go from 15 to 20 feet. Click on OK. You can see the outer casing and the screen are now added. So that's our well diagram. You can see that data entry is efficient and straightforward. Now I will show you how to create a new log format. Let's say that you're currently using Excel to create your boring logs, and this is your Excel template. We can set up the equivalent log template in QuickLog very easily. Let's start with the header. These prompts here will go in the client section, and the remaining prompts will go into two boring information sections. Going back to QuickLog, reopen the template log _bore1 by clicking on its name in the list. To reach the layout editor, select Data Entry, Header Footer Layout. The layout is chosen by dragging items onto this virtual page. You also select the page size and orientation here. Notice how each item in this virtual editor corresponds to the equivalent item on the log. For example, the logo, logo, client, client, boring name, boring name, boring information, boring information. In the new format we are creating, there are 16 boring information prompts. So I'm going to choose different elements over here to let us have this many prompts. So first of all, I'm going to drag off this large boring name, and I'm going to drag off this large boring information 1. And I'm going to replace the boring information 1 with a combination boring name and boring information 1 there. That'll allow 6 prompts, and then I'm going to place boring information 2 in the middle. Click on OK. Now there's room for 6 prompts here, and they haven't been defined here yet, but there'll be 10 prompts there. Now is a good time to save our new template. So we can click this button here, and you're going to be prompted that you're in demo mode. So since you're in demo mode, there's a limit to how much data you can enter. So let's delete some of the data so that it'll let us save. So click on any boring information text, and then select this Edit Mode button so that we can highlight multiple cells. Then click Ctrl-X to cut, and click on OK, and now we should be able to save. So now I'm going to place the 4 client items in the client section. So here's a client section reached this way, and I'm going to go back to the Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to just cut and paste these. So here's project. Okay, the client section is complete. Now I'll do the boring information prompts. To speed things up, I have the prompts pre-pasted to the side so that I can just paste them into QuickLog in 2 groups. Here's the first group. We're going to replace the existing prompts. Second group. Okay, so the boring information prompts are now complete as well. The last item in the header to change is the logo. The current logo file is logo.bmp, which is found under Documents MTech. If you have a bitmap logo file, you can use it in place of this demo logo. If you don't, you can create a simple text logo by clicking here and entering the text that you want. If you do have a bitmap logo, I recommend pasting it into the current logo file so that you know that it is sized correctly. So let's minimize QuickLog. Look at the Documents MTech folder. There's the logo file is here. I'm going to open it up using Paint. So you right click it and select Open with Paint. You can see that its size is 690 by 195. So now I'm going to open up your logo file. Let's pretend that this is your logo file here. I'll open it the same way. Do Open, you see that it's size 933 by 303. So we need to resize it. So let's try resizing this way. You click on resize, pixels, let's make the horizontal pixels 695. Click on OK. The resize it to 695, but the vertical is still too much because it's 225 pixels when it's supposed to be under 195. So let's do undo, resize, let's choose vertical pixels of 195. Click on OK. Now it looks like it'll be sized correctly, so let's select it and paste it into the current logo file. So I'm going to select this area, Control C for copy, and I'm going to open up the demo logo file. I'm going to select the area here so I can clear this out, hit the delete key, then I'm going to do paste, and I center it, and just save. We can exit out of Paint, go back to QuickLog, click on the logo area, select Use Graphic Logo. It's going to use logo.bmp, what we just saved. Click on OK. You see that your logo now replaces the demo logo. So our header now contains the same information as the Excel log header. Let's make sure we save our work now and often. Now that our header is complete, it's time to set up the columns. Under Data Entry, select Column Setup. You can also reach this same editor via a shortcut by just clicking on the word Description. The first column is the depth scale column. It is shown by default, so it's not listed under Column Setup unless you want to adjust its width. So the first column listed is the elevation scale column. Next is the USCS column, the graphic column, and the descriptions column. And you can see they correspond to the same columns on the diagram, USCS graphic descriptions. Following those columns are sample box numbered, blow count, then parameter 1 and parameter 2. Now parameter 1 and parameter 2 were defined to be dry density and percent finer than the number 200 sieve. The last column is the well diagram. So let's modify these columns to match those of the Excel template. So in our template, the first two columns are sample type and sample number. So let's adjust those first. So there's no elevation scale. So I'm just going to select sample box graphic because I'm actually going to show the sample type as a graphic. And then the next one I'm going to do as a parameter. I'm just going to make it P1. Now let's change parameter 1 from dry density to sample number. I abbreviate it right here because it's going to become the header in this column right here. But I'll type it out for what I want as heading part 1. Sample number. And it's rotated, and we'll leave that there are lines dividing it for right now. I'll click on OK. So this becomes sample number. And I'm going to change this header right here from just the word sample to sample type. Okay, so they have these two columns. Now I'm going to do the third column, which is blow count. So go back to the column setup editor. So we have sample box graphic P1. I'm going to insert a column here. In this case, you insert a row, and we're going to do blow count. I'll click on OK. So we have the first three columns, and now we need a graphic log and then lithology or descriptions. So the header here is graphic log, so I will change that. just the word graphic to graphic log. And I'll change this to lithology. Let's see if that's the same now. Lithology, graphic log. Then we need dry density, then moisture content, then additional test. So after graphic descriptions, we need dry density. So let's make that parameter 2. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete these 3 rows right here. And you can manipulate them like any other spreadsheet just by highlighting them and doing Control X. And then we can highlight these, parameter 2, do Control X, Control V for paste, and that would be parameter 2. And we also need moisture content and additional tests. So let's make these parameter 2, parameter 3, and parameter 4. And there is no well diagram, so I can delete that. On OK. Now we need to define parameters 2, 3, and 4. So the first parameter is dry density. Second parameter is moisture content, and the third is additional test. So I'll make them all the same. I rotate the heading and I have lines between the columns. Since parameter 3 is moisture content, we could make it the specialized moisture content graph showing the Atterberg limits. To see how to do this, we can look at sample log TB5. First, let's save our work, then click on TB5T, and you see the specialized graph right here. So click on that, and the way to define that graph is under heading part 3 to do ATT colon and then the abbreviations for the plastic limit, liquid limit, and also the water content. So you can see that this matches this here. So we have PL, LL, and WC %, and that would be the header. So I'm going to cut and paste this to our log. Control C, cancel. Open our boring back up, and I'm going to redefine moisture content here for heading part 3. I paste it in, ATT there. I'm going to put content here. And I'm not going to rotate the heading or have lines. It's now going to be a graph. Graph needs to have a start and end, so let's have it 0 to 100 by 25, and the graph heading will be moisture content, so we don't actually need this moisture content here. I'll click on OK, and then we also have to change the column type here to a graphic column. So it's going to be parameter graph 3 rather than just parameter 3. Click on OK, and we now see this new column. Now if we need to widen this so that the 75 doesn't run into the 100, we can click on here again. Let's make this 0.8 instead of 0.6. Okay, so now we have more room for moisture content. Now, speaking of more room, we have additional space here on the right, so we can change the column widths in a number of places. So here's the sample type, sample number, those look good to me. The blow count should look good to me. And the graphic log should be a little wider. Lithology should be a little wider. So let's do that. Let's widen those two. So under graphic, we can make it 0.4. And then I notice down here on total width, I have 5.7 used out of 6.8. So I have additional 1.1 inches. Let's just add that onto the descriptions then. Make this 3.9. Click over here. So we have 6.8 out of 6.8. Click on OK. So now we're using the entire space in the diagram. At the bottom of the Excel log, there's a legend for sample type and groundwater level. We can add a similar legend in QuickLog. Click on Edit Column Legend, and we need to start to add the same items here that are on this Excel log. So bulk bag sample, then you check Use Sample Box Legend, and we have to select the fill patterns. Now the first fill pattern is an X, and that is the default first fill pattern in QuickLog, so we can leave that blank. So then we need a black, then a vertical lines, then horizontal lines. So I'm going to choose FB for fill black. Vertical lines, just like this pattern. For horizontal lines, we'll make them a little thicker. I'll choose that pattern. Let's change sample condition to sample type. Click on OK. And we now have a legend here for sample type. Now, in the same area, we can also add the water level legend. Change the title to groundwater level, and in the Excel log, we're going to stabilize as dark, and groundwater at time of drilling is the open triangle. Box to use that legend. So we have stabilized and during drilling. So our template log is complete. Let's select Save, and let's test what it would be like to use it by adding some data. So first of all, we click in this section. Let's give it a boring name. Click OK. Now that we've added some data, let's go ahead and do a save as, just like we would if we were actually using this as a real-world project, so that we don't write over our template. So then we do File, Save File As, and just give it a name, Z1, click Save, and then of course we'd continue to add in data, etc. Fill in all the boring information data. Put in our project number, our client. Let's put in some sampling data to see what these sample types look like. I'm going to do samples spaced out every 2 feet. And let's test some of these conditions or sample types. Click on OK. So you can see we've got 4 samples here. Now let's do some sample numbers next to these samples. So you can see what that looks like. We'll do some blow counts. I'll do 2 blow count values. See that they will be spaced every foot. Now let's start to do some lithology. There's our first layer of well-graded sand, and we'll continue down. Let's make another layer just so this area looks better. Let's have this layer end at 15 feet. More of the log. We'll do some dry density. And a moisture content. And an additional test. So there's our new log. As you can see, you can be set up and ready to produce your own logs in about 30 minutes. If you need help, please contact MTech. Thank you for watching.